YouTube, once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking Auburn football. The Auburn Tigers take on Texas A&M in a pivotal SEC West matchup down in College Station this coming weekend, 2:30 Central Time, 3:30 Eastern Time. That game is going to be televised on CBS, where Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler will provide the announcing play-by-play. Gary Danielson, the color commentating by Brad Nessler. Always a, kind of a fun event when you have those particular games, especially the high-stake games like this one could shape up to be when we look further down the season. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Texas A&M and Auburn have the perfect formula for a very good rivalry, in my opinion. I think these two teams are eerily similar when you look at their traditions and you look at their high levels of pageantry that's just enviable as you look at the rest of college football. You talk about Auburn. They have so many great traditions with the Plainsman, the Tiger Walk, the rolling of Toomer's Corner. Also, the Eagle flies at the beginning of the game to start the season off, and then the battle cry of War Eagle on kickoffs and things of that nature. You can't discount Auburn's tradition as it relates to college football. Then on the other side, you have Texas A&M, who have one of the best traditions in college football, have an incredible, football atmosphere. Stadium that's Kyle Field seats over 102,000 people. And the 12th man, it just doesn't get any better than that type of tradition for Texas A&M. Texas A&M comes to the SEC from the Big 12, also were members of the Southwestern Conference for a number of years. And one thing you can say about Texas A&M and Auburn, what makes these teams so similar is the fact that they are going to always constantly be at odds because they have a flagship school in their states that they have to constantly compete against, for recruiting and just for namesake. At least with Texas A&M, they have the Texas State name attached to their particular university. Then you have Auburn, who has to contend with Alabama on a yearly basis. And of course, Auburn does not have the namesake of Alabama in their particular name as far as college-wise. So that's a thing that you have to look at. And you also talk about the ridiculous success that Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide have had over the last, going on a decade. Their run is absolutely incredible and can be a little bit difficult to contend with. So I think the similarities between the two schools is when you look at the rivalry factor is the fact that they are always, they're in the shadows of another school in the particular state. Now, Texas A&M, because of coming to the SEC, they no longer play against Texas, which I think is a travesty in and of itself. It takes away from the rivalry factor in college football. As a matter of fact, they haven't played one another since Texas A&M joined the SEC, and that's just unfortunate. But at the same time, Texas A&M has learned in their arrival in the SEC that you have to recruit well up front. And they've done an incredible job of doing this. You talk about Myles Garrett, also Mitabuke that they have now. They have excellent guys at the defensive front. What teams have to learn is that if you're going to compete, if you notice in the SEC West especially, they're predicated on having very, very excellent defensive lines. Auburn likes to boast that they have one of the best, most athletic defensive lines in the country. I look at Texas A&M on video footage, and I don't see too much different. They play very well up front. They play very disruptive and physical up front, which is very similar to Auburn's approach. So that's going to be one of the keys to the game, is which defensive front can have the most impact and the most disruption on the offenses who are going to be very active. You talk about Kellen Mond, who throws the ball very well, and he's also can be a threat. Now, statistically, he hasn't shown that he's a threat, but can take off and run the football, and he's gotten a lot better under Jimbo Fisher as a passer. And then, my goodness, you talk about the Auburn defensive line, who is now starting to find a two-deep threat. You talk about Tyrone Truesdale, Cornish Miller, even getting some help from some of the recruits from 2019 who can really make an impact in this particular football game. Also, a similarity is their approach as far as what they like to do offensively. Texas A&M likes to spread you out, run the ball up the middle. They also like to bring some combo packages to where they stack the line. And I think this can be a very, very interesting game. Now, currently, the point spread has A&M favored by 3.5 points and with an over-under of 48.5. We will talk about that as the week progresses. It is Tuesday right now, and I just wanted to kind of touch on some of the similarities. I mean, when you look at Auburn and Texas A&M, very similar in tradition, very similar in the fact that they have to share, they're largely overshadowed by another more traditional team in the state. Texas has the University of Texas, and Alabama, of course, has the University of Alabama that Auburn has to contend with on a recruiting level and a national perception level. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast, talking Auburn football. Just wanted to point out some of the similarities between Texas A&M and Auburn. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.